Thanks, Susan. Um, so, I was like in this space of a lot of moving parts, none of which felt like they were in my hands, being in service to all but myself. And then being here and being in this business for 5 years, seeing moms come through my door all the time, feeling exhausted, feeling overwhelmed with the look on their face like, what the hell am I saying? How's it going? And then them saying, actually, there's a lot happening. Oh, and my mother caregiving stuff for my mom 2,500 miles away that I couldn't get out to help fix. Like she's falling 3 or 4 times a week and she couldn't get a caregiver who was consistent, who wasn't stealing her money and doing, there's a lot. So I said, this seems like, excuse my language, a fuck this shit kind of moment. And so that's kind of what I said. And then I really wanted to also, I think because I'm 52, 53 now, 52 at the time, I said, what am I doing with this time I have? I think when I was 20, I don't think about the time I had. I had all the time in the world. What are you talking about? But at 53, I'm like, I'm not going to want to work forever. I like and really love Best in Class. It's a great business. But I don't know that it's my highest use of my abilities. And so I was also looking to create something that would have impact. That was important to me. I said, whatever I create next as a work for myself to do, and I have the luxury of doing that as an entrepreneur, to like say, I'm not going to 9 to 5. I can actually think about creating something now. That's a new skill in the last 5-6 years. Whatever it is has to mean something, has to have impact. I worked in social policy research for almost 16 years, trying to understand what kind of programs help people move out of poverty before I started this business. The punchline was not many, and nothing. And then, if anything, it was education, which kind of led me to this work here. But I went in so like bright-eyed and like I came with all these skills. I got a PhD from Harvard. Like I'm ready to like change the system and let these folks know and really get some humane policies in place for people who are policied to death. And my background is qualitative research, so I said I'm going to translate the lived experiences of low-income people to policymakers so that they can make more humane. They're going to understand like how challenging it is, right? You should giggle. But like literally, that's what I was like, bright-eyed. I'm like, I'm smart. I wrote an amazing, strong dissertation. I know that I can communicate this stuff. That was a complete fail. Big fat F on that. It's now looking back at it, these systems are machines. They are, for that one I call the philanthropy, government, research, industrial triangle that just works together to create. I used to laugh. I used to say it's like a jobs program for PhDs. It's like, here's a place for us to work to look at something but not really change it. And I was frustrated. I don't know if I've even felt frustrated, but I just got sucked into it. And the funny thing about it for me that I think relates to founding mothers and like informed self-determination or choice is like I went in saying, I don't want to work for you. I just want to be a consultant. I want to come in, help you guys with some projects, let's develop a relationship. And they're like, no, come on board, come to work for us. And I did. And I should not have, but I didn't have strong enough vision for myself. They were offering X amount of dollars, which was seductive to come and do some work that felt like I could still do it. And then while I created a lot of work there that was, quality and impactful, most policy research studies go to the funder, go on the website, and then people do what they want to do after that, which is mostly more of the same. That was a huge digression, but I guess it's part of the story of how I got here. But I was in this personal crucible of responsibilities, roles, and none of them were particularly satisfying. And I said, I want to, from this, create something for women. And then knowing women, having friends who are women, having clients who are women, watching girls grow up here. I have a son, but watching girls grow up here really sort of brought to the forefront that they're like big issues for us. And then I think also just the social and political context for women right now, which is like constraining our rights again over our own bodies, how we function in this world. This is just America, let alone everywhere else, which is highly problematic as well. So I said, back to what I said at the beginning, I look at my fundamental point when thinking about women is thinking that we're human beings. And that means we have the same rights and abilities and connection to source or whatever. We have the same ability to create as anyone else. I guess that would be men. But we have the same right and ability to create. And a big part of that is us believing that we do. Because I think we've been sold a bill of goods that says we're not able to make those choices and move in those directions and create for ourselves. And when we do, I think we're also often shamed if we pick ourselves first. Like there's shaming in that. Like you're not a good mother, you're not a good wife, you're not a good employee, you're not a good daughter, you're not a good whatever. If you have the audacity to say, hey, I see myself as a person and I want to do this. And it may be different than what you perceive is correct for me to do or to have that choice. And again, I think partly just because of the way I was personally raised, which was with a lot of encouragement and freedom to be self-determining. Like I moved across the country at 22. So yeah, family, bye, I'm leaving. And they were like, okay, make sure these things are set in place, not just going off completely willy-nilly, but they trusted me to do it. And they didn't say you need to stay home, you need to do this, yeah, whatever. So I believe women can be self-determining and should be. Because if you're not, if you're living sort of under this limited patriarchal choice set, and you're living in a position of mostly service to other people's needs before your own, I feel that that's a half life. For me, that's not a fully lived life. And there's nothing wrong with caregiving. There's nothing wrong with being emotionally intelligent. There's nothing wrong with these things, but the disproportionate distribution of them, I think on top of sort of modern abilities for us to be in the workplace, which is also constrained opportunities lots of times for women. If you go on LinkedIn and you click DEI or something, you're gonna get overwhelmed with women just reporting all these micro and macro aggressions and limitations and all this stuff. And I'm like, nah.
What if we don't even allow that ever? Like,
yes, expand. What do you mean? Say more.
Like, so from what I understand, it's like, what if we like don't even allow the things to happen that are getting reported?
Mm.
So it would be like, what if there are just no aggressions of any kind.
How about that?
That would be really, really great.
Look, what if you could walk from here to school at night without feeling like, will I make it? I need to call Safe Ride.
That was always such a big thing, like my freshman year, because my boyfriend lived down here in the village.
Shitty.
Yeah, and I would have to be like, all right, I'm coming to walk to you. If I'm not there in 20 minutes, call the police.
Yeah. And men don't think those things. Did he ever call you and say, I'm coming to you in 20 minutes, and if I don't get there, call the police?
No.
No.
Sometimes he would meet me halfway so I didn't have to walk the whole way alone. Though.
Right, he's meeting you, but
Yeah.
you didn't have to go meet him to make sure he was.
Yeah.
No. Right. So like, what if those things didn't exist? What if we didn't have them? Just imagine what life would be like to be free as a woman, to move through the world, to achieve what you wanted, to be able to be a parent and still have a life of your own, to be able to access healthcare and be listened to be able to compete either against your own gender or not, or whatever, just to be in the world, or even to be, and this is the part that I think is going to be the most interesting or challenging to communicate to people. For women to step so far back that we decide, is competition a way that we want to interact? Are these norms that we have in place for us of our ways of being that are constructed on a patriarchal foundation, are they even the ones that we want? Are these the ways that we want to be? And I look at I'm usually like a pretty cheerful, rosy person, but oh well. I look at our society, I think in particular in the United States, it's challenging. And most of the things don't really work. The educational system does not really work at all. The healthcare system doesn't actually work. The economic system definitely is so utterly corrupted and challenged.
When I learned that we used to have a maximum wage in the US,
Oh my God.
and then they like took it away, because I learned that on like TikTok.
Did you really?
Yeah, like that was not a thing that we were taught in school.
Ever?
No. So I was like, is this real? And then I Googled it, and surely enough, the Department of Treasury, their article came up that was like, yeah, before Reagan, we used to have a maximum wage so that wealth would be properly distributed amongst Americans instead of hoarded by the top 1%.
Well, you can see from Reagan forward, that has flipped to obscene degrees. Yeah. And I'm like, and I'm not one to constrain certain things, because I'm like, if I'm getting rich, don't try and take all my stuff. But at the same time, we have responsibilities. And the reason that these people can accumulate so much is because the people they rely on to do everything else are not fairly, that compensation isn't fair, it doesn't make sense. And then if you look at it by gender, even more so, I mean, it was Women's Pay Day this week, and it's 77 cents on the dollar, I think now. And then if you break it down by race or ethnicity, it like distributes even further away from the, I guess, the male average or the white male average, whatever is that dollar represents.
I think it's like Black and Latina women are tied for like 56 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, I thought it was 56 cents, right? And then if you look at wealth, it's even worse. It's 32 cents, 33 cents for women, just in general, women overall on the dollar. And I think this is an important point, because I think in Founding Mothers, one of the things that I think will be critical for us to work on is resources for women. Like, they have to have their own money. We have to have our own money. I know that in my rearing with my parents, they, they said to me explicitly, you may not rely on a man for your income. You can't. You have to have your own money, because if you do, and you get in a situation you don't like, and you don't have any money, then you're stuck. And you're not gonna like that. And we don't want that for you. So from age 14, 15, my parents were saying that to me explicitly. And I feel like it's on the one hand, like as an adult, I'm like, how come I have to pay all these bills? Why does nobody else pay my bills? But on the other hand, I am always able to care for myself and have always been able to be that and then make free-ish choices in life accordingly. And, the founding mothers name relates to our founding fathers here in this country, because I think it's a William Blake poem, but he said they didn't believe in the future, they believed it into being. And I feel like I want the same for women. There's no real roadmap for what I'm talking about here. There isn't. But I'm like, I don't care.
We're gonna make one.
We're gonna make one. We're gonna believe in a new future for us. And I feel like I think I'm really not even energizing like backlash and stuff. But I think the thing that comes out of a woman-centered world is it's inclusive in a way that this current framework is not. I think men will have more freedom in this world as well, because I think women will include them in their thinking. I think we naturally are going to do that without centering them.
Yeah.
Being careful about not centering them, because that's a very well-worn path. But I think the potential to be inclusive for them, I'd make this joke, I've been telling it lately. Maybe men can have more than two emotions, anger and sports.
Like, and sometimes they combine into one.
Into one, right? Anger can be embedded into sports. But maybe they can have like a fuller set of emotions in this world. Like maybe they can connect with their families or their kids in different ways. Maybe I don't know. But I'm definitely on this. I don't believe in the future. I want to believe it into being this woman-centered world. So yeah, that's where Founding Mother's name came from that. I think, so I think I'm good at being an intellectual and thinking about stuff. But I'm also like, okay, but like, what are we gonna actually do? We gotta like do stuff to like make this happen. So I think some things that I want to do include, did I finish the story about why this heartbreak led to this thing? So I was in this crucible, it was sucking.
Yeah.
It was trash.
It's awful.
I hated it. And I was like, why? And then let's say it. The breakup allowed me to pull my head out of this guy's butt, which is where it had been for years. And then I looked around, I was like, hey, world. Hey, Elisa, there you are. I missed you. Where you been, girl? Oh, your head was up his ass for like 3 years. Anyway, so when I got out of that, then I had more mental bandwidth to think about, what do I want to do with the next 20 years of my life? What do I want to achieve? What impacts do I want? Women seems like a strong issue to work on. And then I started reading stuff. I read The Feminine Mystique, which was highly problematic on so many levels. The book is problematic because she lied a lot in it. It made up a lot of stuff. So be it. But it laid a path for feminism, again, that is both positive and problematic at the same time. But I was like, well, let me go back to the original text to see what this says.
Is this like the 70s feminism?
Like, yeah, from 70s feminism, but even earlier, because she wrote that book in from the late 50s to 60s, right? So it's a like pretty old book. And then I was looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I was like, you know, self-actualization is at the top. I was like, I want to be self-actualized. But then I'm like, can women even be self-actualized when we spend so much of our time in safety, securing our safety, economic security, having some self-esteem that's not been beaten the crap out of us? Like, how do we even get there? And I'm like, okay, this is a great model, and people have accepted it wholeheartedly without even, there's like very little challenging to that. It's really just been accepted. And even Maslow was saying, why is nobody ever challenging this? Because it's science. You're supposed to say, is that true?
Yeah, like you're supposed to test it a bunch of times.
Right, they don't. Everyone just said, ooh, nice, and we'll make a nice pyramid. So, and so I went back to that original article and read it. And it's not surprisingly, the majority of his sample were men. So then I was like, is this even the right choice set? Are these even the things women want? Like, how do we, I don't even know that. Like, I can't even say like with confidence that these would be the choices that women have, or these would be the levels of safety and security. You know, I don't know that those are our things. They are things, they make sense, but are they the ones that women would have? We don't know.
One would be the same, but after that, then like,
Right,
we have different needs than men do.
right. And exactly. So I think there are like so many like fundamental foundational questions, which are very, I'm not going to say difficult to get to, but I think very little to no thinking has taken place about the sort of the fundamental acceptance of, I can't say that no one's thinking about the acceptance of male norms, but even in the criticism of them, they still stay within the parameters of them without going, wait, what would it look like if it were based on what women wanted? What would this look like if this whole study had if Maslow's whole study had been women, would it look the same? Who knows, right? So I'm just like, I don't think I can unearth the entire world and the entire history of science, but I'm like, okay, from where we are now what? What are we gonna do? Oh, so then I did what I do as a researcher. I made a survey.
Yeah, survey.
So I surveyed women here locally. I shared it. It was a type form survey. And women were saying, you know, there were sort of patterns of women not being first in their own lives. Their kids came first, their husband came first, the job came before them, like that kind of thing. So I saw that kind of patterning. I said women who were done with parenting officially rose up in their placement of themselves in those levels of who comes first. I saw women not, a distribution of women around on that. So I asked about Maslow's hierarchy, and I said, where do you think you are? And only a small segment were in that self-actualized thing, although that's common. Hardly anyone's in that self-actualized thing, but it concerned me how few were. Like, can we get to that place? Do we get to express our genius? That kind of stuff.
Where was it the most concentrated? Like which level?
Somewhere between, these are probably pretty middle class, like the middle class people. Somewhere between safety and esteem. So like the second and third from the top. So self-actualization, I think, is at the top, is definitely at the top. But I think esteem and then safety and security were where most of the women sort of fell. And I think that includes like physical safety, economic security, stability, like all those kinds of things. But if you get to spend your whole life churned up in that space and you're always feeling under threat and you can't quite get there and you can't earn enough money to do, then that's where you're going to stay. You can't get to paint your masterpiece. And it's so funny, like at the same time, I had a former, so I have a certification as a life coach. It's not a real business, but I, I have over the years, coached people. And I had a recent client who was, and who's an artist. I was helping her through the last year of art school, like how to get through this successfully. And I said to her, I've had this idea in my head for a while of a woman standing at an easel with a baby on her breast and another one on her leg with a paintbrush saying, oh, now I can paint my masterpiece. Like Michelangelo and all these people they were not like nursing a baby and doing this stuff when they're creating this genius in that zone of self-actualization. And so she actually made me a couple pieces, which was incredible. I'll share them at some point, but she got the vision and she said, oh, I get it. And so, but I'm like, how are women supposed to get there when we have all this stuff sort of pulling at us? Or you have to like make radical, quote unquote, radical choices, like I'm gonna be child free, I'm gonna whatever, which are fine choices, but then you're stigmatized and also stuff happens when you make those kind of choices. Because I want to, or I just don't freaking want kids. Fine choice personally. Or I couldn't, or whatever happens, right? But if you got these things, these caregiving demands and these other demands on you, how do you ever get to that top point? Or do you have to wait till you're like 75 and everybody's dead or they're trying to take care of you? So those were kind of churning around in my world, in my mind, as well as I got those survey results. And I was like, okay, what are you gonna do? Do you want to coach? Do you want to run workshops? Do you want to hold retreats? Do you want to whatever? So answer yes to all those things, kind of. But I think in the later months, so that's like September, October, November, maybe early December, the idea just got bigger. I was like, I think it's bigger than this, because then I started asking these fundamental questions like, do we even know what we want, given the fact that we've never really had the opportunity to determine who are we as women? We've been told who we are. Yeah. We've been put in boxes and constrained and encouraged. So like the thing in Feminine Mystique, for example, during World War II, women were in the work, they were in the factories because all the men were gone fighting. So the women were home working and doing these things because we needed labor. The men came home, and then suddenly the narrative completely switched, where it was like Rosie the Riveter, you could do it, Uncle Sam needs you too. Your natural place is the home. The place you get fulfillment is through your husband and children, and that's it. And so then you had, although these trad wives now are trying to emulate this in their cosplay, they're not calling it cosplay, it's their actual lives. For me, I'm like, you're wearing a costume. But society said, you can't compete with men for jobs. So we have to change the narrative. And this, again, is also racialized because this is for white women largely, because Black women have always been working, right? And they stayed working the whole time and still working now. But that, that narrative changed to this idealized woman, or this type of woman was idealized that was a servant to her family and her total fulfillment. Yeah, so fulfillment through marriage, children, and sex with your husband. And that was it. Like housekeeping. That's it. But the women were like, wait, we were just out here saving, doing the war effort, out here capable, able to do things, whatever, and then now what? And so that's when a lot of women started day drinking and taking pills and doing a lot of stuff to sort of tamp down the inner screams that were like in conflict because the society said, no, you actually just are this. So that's not self-determined. So again, I'm going to say informed self-determination is critical. And so I'm pulling that off. That thread's getting pulled all the way through. Yeah, so I was reading, I'm thinking, and I said, I think this is bigger than me just coaching individual women about this. And I went through different names, different ideas, but I'd heard this quote from Blake a lot the last couple, I don't know, it came up in a lot of different things I was seeing, something about the founding fathers believing the future into being. And I was like, I think that's it. And then, because we can't go from what is, we have to just say, we're gonna just think about what works for us and like, let's believe in it to the point where we're living it, embodying it, and then manifesting, creating it. So I think that's what that's the origin story. It's our villain origin story. And then, yeah, just like, then things started to sort of fall in line with that. So I have this position with SOPAC, but that literally, well, it came out of the blue, but it did kind of. So I was having lunch with a friend down the street at Alita's Coffee. He's the pastor of the church across the street and has been a big supporter, longtime supporter of good old Best in Class. And, you know, I hadn't really seen him really much since the pandemic, so we were catching up. And then Stephen, who's the executive director of SOPAC, I don't even think he was on the job yet, or he had just started, came in as we were leaving, and we just sort of, you know, they introduced, everyone's talking. And Stephen's brand new, and he said, oh, I'd love to sit down with you to get to know what you're thinking about the community, blah, blah, blah. I said, sure. I'm thinking I'm going to tell him where the best coffee is. I don't know. But it took about, I don't know, 6 weeks or something, maybe longer, to get something calendared. And he came here and he sat down at my desk. And we just were exchanging, getting to know each other. This is my background, this is what you do, blah, blah. And he says, you know, I have this new vision for SOPAC to be impactful, connect and engage with the community differently than it has traditionally, bring in new types of programming, all kinds of stuff. And he says, you know, I've got 5 different parts of that. You know, there's Broadway, music, comedy, immersive experiences, and you're the thumb, families and children. I said, I'm the thumb. So that was not what I expected from that meeting. Like, but behind the scenes of that, my friend is on the board of SOPAC. I know people. I have built some reputation locally around kids and stuff. And so they were having conversations in those intervening weeks and said, oh, let's offer this to her. I said, that sounds exciting. I'll do it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And so that position is giving me like sort of a different new platform, which sort of coincides with Founding Mothers, which is now why we're having this event in a couple of weeks. And so it feels like things just keep dovetailing together. That makes me say, oh, I think this is the right thing to do. Like, it resonates with people when I talk to them about it. It feels like the right thing for me to be doing, like, given my background and the things that I know and my own experiences, you know, whether that's as an intellectual or as a mom, as a married person, as a divorced person, as a business owner, as a worker, but all those things are sort of culminating into this thing that I'm offering. So I think it is. So I think the challenging point for me, and it's not really a challenging point, is figuring out like where do I start, right? Like, what is this thing? And so I'm having this event. It's forcing me to think about this and make practical how I engage with people on this.
Right.
Because as an intellectual, I can just think forever and be content. But, you know, that's not, the rubber doesn't hit the road when you just do that. ask all my friends who are professors. Minimal impact beyond their students that they're touching right there, which is important. Except I was thinking about my son hates school and he does not like it. He's like, high school sucks and these teachers are terrible and they're rude and whatever. And I was thinking, well, you can't care about high school because you literally may never see these people again and they'll have zero impact on your future necessarily. So you really don't take it so seriously. But I also was thinking, I probably had more than 100 teachers in my lifetime of schooling. I don't remember most of them. I don't remember, but I know that I learned some stuff and that's good. But I'm just like, you have to just, part of this is a total aside, but I'm like, for him, I'm just like, you just have to learn the stuff. You can't take personally whether you like the teacher or not. That has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be in their job next semester and you're going to have a D.
And you're gonna have to retain.
And you have to retain it. You might see them again, which will be worse. So anyway, so founding mothers exist, and I'm like, okay, how do I do it? And so, I have skills as a coach. I probably will do some coaching, either individuals or groups. So that will be an offer. I just thought, as I was in the shower where many of my good thoughts come out, so the founding fathers was like 8 dudes or so. It was like a small number of men who just came together and were like, well, let's do something different. And then they just kept manifesting it and kept imposing their will and kept saying, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. So on the secret level, not really secret, I probably want to get a council of women who will operate in the same way with me.
Okay.
So that's one thing. But that's not really for the public view. They will get there. So I think a council, is important to develop, but I think that council model as well may be programmatic for the founding mothers as it expands to different areas around the country. Like there could be, you can have your 13-person council in Dubuque, Iowa, or wherever, where you have your mastermind group of women who are really thinking about this different within some framework that we provide them with, right? So founding mothers create some operating principles or something like that, where we can just take that and it can expand to be able to change communities all around the country, the globe. But I think the place I have to start with is my own council. And so that's something I'm exploring, figuring out how to put that set of women together. They're sort of naturally gravitating to me right now, which is great. But, I think I'm going to let it develop for now. But that's one thing. So I'll say this as well. Founding Mothers is a business. It's not a nonprofit. It's not a charity. It may have developed philanthropic wings later. But it's a business, so that means it has to bring in money. And so I think that's probably coaching stuff, probably groups because it's easier, lower price point per person, and it takes up less of my time,
right,
which is good. So probably group coaching. I also, though, sort of have laid out, so if there's coaching happening, then I also want to do periodic retreats where women are able to step away from their lives, go someplace, and we can spend time in that ideation phase of like, what is a woman-centered world? Like, what does that look like? What does that look like in your domain? So you're, what do you want to do after this? After you finish school?
Professorship.
Okay, so in the academy, what would the academy be like if it was women-centered? Pretty different than it is now.
Very different than it is.
Super trash, right? Yikes. So I think the retreats will do that. I think I want to, so in my mind, to do a national conference in 2024, to have built a community. So there's a council, right? I think building a community is probably the first thing to do for this, is to just have, through the website, through a Facebook group, through something like that, building through the social media, be building a community of women. I don't know if that makes money or not. Maybe. Maybe. If it's a membership, yes. So community, what I've seen, I have friends who do different work. So I have a friend, Tiffany Aliche, she's called the Budgetnista. She does financial empowerment for women. So she has community for sure, which is just people who consume her content that's free. She does live, she does whatever, she's putting out tips, all that stuff. And then she's got a membership where you get like more education, but it's not like direct working with her. It's just sort of like a platform where you could get information about saving and investing and whatever.
Right.
And then I'm pretty sure that's all she does, because she does a lot of public speaking and media and stuff like that. And she's got books. So that's probably similar framework, where there's sort of a, a goal for us is to just build a community and then offer people ways to engage that increase, but that they have to pay. That's to start paying to participate in higher levels of the development. But yeah, retreats, I think a national conference, but not a boring one. So I think sort of like festival / conference is what I'm thinking.
Ooh.
Which is like more fun, like what, again, with the main theme being what does a woman-centered world look like? But TEDx type speakers, South by Southwest type activities and events, and time for women to also just, so when I was in that crucible, the worst part was there was no space for me to think, because it was everybody else needed the stuff for me and I couldn't get to myself.
Right.
And so a lot of women are in that position. And so just giving them some space around their brains to think, what do I want? What could work for me? What could I imagine? Like, I feel like that is very valuable. I think there's a lot of value in that. And then giving them some structure to say, you're in the academy, here's 17 other women who are in the academy. Why don't you guys go in this room and really play with how could this be different? And then what are some steps we can take to make it so? I think our society gets away with taking women for granted because women keep playing in these spaces where they can't win, where they only get access to where there's limited choice sets, where they only get access to what they're told they can have. And so the system keeps going. I saw something that said, I hope it was just for the United States, I don't actually know, but like $1.7 trillion of unpaid labor comes from women every year. This is like bigger than a huge chunk of our whole economy comes from free labor from women, I think just in the home. So just to keep the society going, trillions of dollars of our time and labor effort, the society runs on that. Society runs on the fact that we offer all this free labor, uncompensated labor. And for me, it's the dollars, but it's also the time. You can get more dollars, but you can't get the time back.
Right.
Once you spend it, that's spent. Once you've dedicated it to this, it's not dedicated to that. So yeah, you should recoup some of that. Or at least, again, be informed in your decision-making about what it is you're doing and not just be going with the flow. My dream vision is to create a girls' academy so that young girls are completely trained to have their own gaze going into the world, that's strong in them, so that if you're 14 and that boy comes up to you and says whatever, that you have a clear idea, like, do I like him? I remember being a girl and these boys would like me, or these men, and I was like, well, he has good taste, so let me just go along with it. Right, like, obviously. But I didn't choose them.
Right.
They chose me, and then I said, okay. But I didn't have the mindset to be like, let me look at these. I mean, kind of like, oh, he's cute, blah, blah, blah. But not like in any like active agency holding way. I didn't have agency. And again, I'm pretty empowered, and I did not have agency in that space. So it'd be great if girls could say, I want to do this with my life. I want to have this and this thing. This is the kind of relationship I want to have. I'm not going to tolerate less than that. Like those, if you could do that before age 52, like me, like I'm like, oh, boundaries, that's the thing I need. Yeah, it makes life much better when you have them. So, I would love to ultimately have like an academy for girls to really educate them about that. I got not pushed. A friend of mine suggested, I think I mentioned this to you, that I apply for this accelerator. So I think there's going to come an app out of this, which I think would be similar to like Calm and Noom. So Calm app is like
It's a meditation.
the meditation app, but it sends you reminders if you set it to do that, to like, are you paying attention? Are you centered? Are you whatever? And I think that similarly for women would be, are you deciding, or is like, where are you? What do you want in this situation? Just to like remind them. And then Noom is a weight loss thing, which is like, it uses a lot of behavioral health, behavioral economics techniques to like get people to continue to get them motivated to educate themselves about what they're doing with food, their movement, all that kind of stuff. So something like that. So some kind of app, because that's what the world wants. But when I think about the Founding Mothers as a company that I lead, I think of it as a human technology business. Like we're in the human technology business, because when I said it at the very first thing I said, which is I think of women as human beings first. I think humaning is something we should be striving for. I think empowered humaning too for women is something that we need to be striving, moving toward. That's in the vision for believing it into being for me, is that. And so human technology is mastery of yourself. I think sort of the masculine orientation toward technology masks problems, distracts from things, and feels like if I slap another app on it, it solves it. But I said, conversations I had in my head, I was like, you can't sit in the room with your mother. You can't look some person in the eye. You can be in the space, but you have a thing to stare at. You can fall in love with your AI, like the Japanese are really falling in love with their AI. I'm like, pretty sure that's not what humaning is supposed to be. I think we're supposed to be able to be with each other. And so sort of underneath, above, surrounding, I don't know, whatever, if Founding Mothers is this orientation that I have towards human beings learning how to be with each other, but in an equitable way. And I don't think equitable is the right word, because I think it's been so bastardized currently, because it still means less than, it still means striving towards a male norm. And that's not what I'm talking about. Striving towards our self-determined norm. And maybe we'll do NFTs.
Yeah.
So that's part of the nut I need to be cracking, though, is figuring out how to get women their own money. Because the reason the Founding Fathers were able to do stuff is because they also were wealthy. So they had wherewithal to and how they got it and all the stuff, whatever, is all super problematic and just replicated and expanded for the last 250 years. But the reason they're able to do it is because they were not necessarily directly reliant on someone else financially. Like my parents said, you cannot rely on a man for your money. Same thing. So I think there's a pretty strong economic undertone to this as well, of financial freedom and for women, because I just feel like it just my mom told me stuff too, but my dad said, money is your freedom. And I used to believe it. And then I was like, I don't like that, but because I think freedom is your freedom. Like, I think you choose to be free or not. But it facilitates a lot. It just lets you have more clear choice about what you can or cannot do in the current system. And then maybe we would create something else. But I feel like women having their own resources under their own control, I think is critical for this. Yeah. So that's that. Anything emergent from that for you? It's a lot, sorry.
No, that's okay. I have like 2.5 pages of notes.
Okay.
So where would you want to start?
We need to get through this event, to be honest. That, and then there needs to be something for women who say, yes, I'm turned on, this is exciting, I want to be involved. I have to have something for them to do. Like, so that I think those are the first two things, is like, what's the next step in terms of an offer? And everybody I know who has trained me about creating offers says just have one. Don't have 10 things. You just confuse people and then they don't buy anything. They don't know what to do. So I think it's going to be it's going to be a group coaching package for women who are unique and maybe in this council. So I think that's what the first thing should be, is that. The other thing that I thought, so I have this event coming, like a SOPAC, right? And I've gotten in there, whatever that is, through my role. And in my crucible times, when I hired a coach to work with here locally, she's great. I feel sorry, she earned every penny, I'll just say that. Is I can be like a very nose to the grindstone person. So I want some stuff to be fun. Like, that's the other thing. And I think that also is attractive to people as well. Like, I think they appreciate that. So therefore, I think having some things that are like salons that are like a little more casual than like a group coaching thing. So maybe like have quarterly salons in a local restaurant and an event space and a whatever, a SOPAC or somewhere, to maybe give bigger group of women a chance to engage with founding mothers, what we're up to, what we're thinking, give them a topic. We're going to do a lunch and learn, but kind of like a lunch and learn idea. We're going to learn about something new, and then we'll have time to socialize and play with each other and have fun too. Because again, giving women a break from their own personal crucibles that they're all living in, I think is an important thing we can do as well. Give them a break mentally. So we need a real web page. If you want to know the things we actually need. We need an actual web page. We need a social media plan. Oh, I want to do a podcast. I've got guests lined up. I bought a microphone. I have a mixing board. That's it. And I know how to do. I have heard something. Squadcast is a way you can do. Squadcast is better than Zoom for doing like interviews with people and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So while I can talk like this into that, but it's most, you're here. Like if you weren't here, I would have stopped 2 seconds in because it's boring for me to talk to myself.
Right.
But so I think the podcast will be important. Podcast may be a way to get dollars as well through sponsorships. And I think it's an opportunity for me to continue to push forward the agenda, whatever, of founding mothers in conversation with other people. Like, what would your industry, a guy who I know who just sent me a note today saying, yeah, he wants to be honored to be on the podcast. And, he works in media, so entertainment and media. So that's pretty male dominated and male normed about what we see and what we look at as entertainment. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with him about like, how could this be different? Like, what would it be different? Like what works and doesn't work in it? And how do you address those things? Like just exploring those ideas, I think, in the pod would be fun. The podcast as well. So podcast, and just scrap this dumb website, get a better one. But like really be thoughtful about a social media strategy, and that's not my area, but supposedly I have a social media person coming on, so we'll see if I talk to her. You have some experience with this, so feel free to chime in, my friend. But I think laying out a roadmap for communications and media is going to be the groundwork that has to be in place in order to build the community. I probably should write a book too while I'm at it. Probably something about this feminine gaze or this informed self-determination stuff, probably. So that's on me. And AI, just kidding. Exactly. What do you think? I don't know. How do I engage young people in this? Does any of what I'm talking about resonate with 20-year-olds? Do they care about this?
I have a lot of friends that listen to podcasts.
Do you?
Yeah. I definitely think it would be really cool in like the app setting to have like it's gonna be really basic, but like this restroom has menstrual products for free.
Wow.
Or like this restroom has menstrual products for 50 cents.
Wow.
Because we have a club on campus called Period Shoe, and they got like menstrual products in 3 bathrooms around campus.
Okay.
So there's one in the university center, there's one in the library, and then there's a magic third one somewhere on campus.
The gym.
And we like never know where it is.
Okay.
So it's always roulette as to whether like the bathroom has like pads and tampons for free.
Oh, for free, yeah. Do they have the other ones with the machines? Nothing. Oh, nice.
And the only building on campus with gender neutral bathrooms is the old nursing building, because nursing is primarily a female dominated like area, and they wanted men to be able to use the bathroom in the building.
So it was to accommodate men.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I was like, wow, this is really nice. Why don't we have it anywhere else? And then I was like, oh wait, this is the old nursing building.
Like that scene in about those women mathematicians at NASA.
Oh, Hidden Figures.
Hidden Figures. Like when she's running back and forth and he says, why are you late? There's no bathroom, running a mile to go to the bathroom.
Literally.
I love that. That's something I never think about. I'm like at the end of that stage. I'm just used to always hauling it with me.
Yeah.
That's a big deal though. Oh, very much so.
And
like, you have to pay for them too. Like you're about to leak through your pants and then you're like, do I have a quarter? Nice.
Or like,
or
does it take Apple Pay?
Right, or there's nothing in it, it's empty. Nice. Oh, so many delights the last 40 years of that. Okay.
0 out of
Out of 10 rated. Would not recommend. Great.
But something like that would be really nice. to
Okay. I love that. That's a brilliant idea. And I think the other thing to look out for this brand to look out for is other women or other voices that are on the same page, who are talking about the same stuff. I don't think they're really talking about yet quite what I'm talking about, but I see women who are trying to do liberation stuff and trying to think through this. And a lot of people are smarter than me, and I completely recognize that.
I mean, the founder of Girls Who Code did like a TED Talk about like a lot of the women are very confined in their spaces and they feel like they need to be perfect in order to break out of these spaces. And it came up on my LinkedIn and I was like, oh, this is funky, because it was only like 6 minutes, so I watched it. And it was like, she said something like 60% of men, or like men will apply to a job if they only meet like 60% of the qualifications, but women have to meet 100% before they will apply to a job.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you're telling me that I'm losing job opportunities to people that are literally only half as qualified as I am?
100%.
That's stupid.
My mom was a banker. So she was like a teller and then like sort of manager kind of person. This is like in the 70s. She trained so many men, white men, who came in as trainees and then got promoted over her. Like numbers, handfuls of them who just were like, she's like, wait, I trained you, but I can't. Yeah. And that story is not a new one. But yeah, so I'm like, the audacity, can we get some of that?
Literally.
Let's develop some of this. Let's be out here. As a woman I follow on LinkedIn who she's does a lot about pay equity and stuff for women. But she says, okay, so what's the woman's complaining? They need to pay me what I'm worth. So, okay, what are you worth? They're like, they don't even know, like they don't even like do these calculations. And she said, oh, so she's laying out some scenario and the woman says she makes like 85 grand or something. And she said, okay, so for what you're describing, you do your job flawlessly, you do your job, you do your boss's job, you do his boss's job, so you're actually worth 435. And the woman's like, what? I can't ask for that. I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
you gotta start asking high.
You got to, and because they might say yes. And if they don't, you should.
Then you need to relocate.
You need to leave that system, do something else, start your own shit.
And do not do other people's jobs for free. That's ridiculous.
But very, very common. And we take that up, like you just said, unpaid labor. So unpaid labor happens at home, but it also happens in the workplace. Like women get these these assignments that have nothing to do with their jobs, like the cultural stuff and the celebration stuff.
Oh, you're head of the party planning for people at birthdays.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I don't fucking want to do
I don't give a damn if you have cake or not, deal with it. But yeah, so their time gets sucked away from that kind of stuff. They get viewed as less effective and important.
Yeah, we should do like kindergarten rules where it's like if it's your birthday, you bring in cupcakes for the class.
There you go. Like, hello. Why are we celebrating birthdays at work? Just go do your work. Not your friend.
Yeah.
That's like a whole nother whatever. But yeah, like that kind of stuff perpetuates. And there's some, I'm sure, pressure on women to do it. But then the acquiescence to that just reinforces the problem. So I'm like, at some point you have to say, no, thank you. I have other things I'm gonna do. Ask Bob.
Yeah.
He's son busy. And he's much less qualified than me. Look at his resume.
He's been scrolling on Twitter for the past 3 hours. You can go and ask him.
Yeah, ask him, feel free. So yeah, all that stuff, like it's just so multi-layered. And like in 10 years, we're gonna be like so badass and like having taken over and figured all this stuff out. But today's today. So the next steps are some sort of social media plan, getting a podcast up, building some framework for a community, applying for this Y Combinator accelerator, which will game change for real. you know, be thinking about what's an app look like, but also I just need to be in communication with women. And so if some of that's just free stuff I do to just be in communication with them, I think that's worthwhile. And I can just slap it on the SOPAC stuff. Since I'm supposed to be listening to the community for that anyway. But yeah. So there's a lot. It's a pretty big vision. But I would love for you in 20 years to be facing different choices in your chosen field and in your personal relationships and in your whatever.
Bro, I really hope so, because the amount of times that I myself and my friends have considered like dropping out and becoming strippers because we would make so much more money.
Right.
And it's like, I fully would. That's the problem.
Trina. No, 100%. I've had that conversation too. Even as a Harvard PhD student, I was like, we could be working at Choices or whatever, be making a lot more money. I mean,
It would all be in cash.
sex work is work, so
Yeah.
it is what it is. But I'm like, yeah, there's like so much. But like the fact that our default is like, well, let me go do some sex work, as opposed to like these dudes are like, let me create some BS app
Yeah.
and make $1 billion. Like what? It's still constrained by this patriarchal
Yeah, because
frame.
we're getting our money based on the chances that men are unhappy in their relationships.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's like,
or just whatever. They make up stories about that. But yeah. So I think like there's so much potential richness in it, but like those stories are real stories, right? Like you're 30 years behind me in schooling. I'm old, so it is what it is. But I had the same conversations with my friends
and like
decades ago.
I have come to accept the fact that I'm probably never going to.
Right. Like that's that whole thing with like millennials and you guys who are younger, you're not millennial, you're younger than that. But like
I'm like the cusp of millennial and Gen Z.
Oh, right.
Nobody really knows what to call us.
Zennial or something.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't have that. I'm a Gen X. I own a home. I've owned a few over the years. But my whatever that was, what's that? Baby boomer parents. Actually, my parents are both too old to be baby. They just both are like yeah. So they missed the baby boom. But my dad helped me. I didn't just like be like, oh, I'm balling. Let me just put this 70 grand down on this house. I'm like, where did you get 70 grand from? Your teacher.
Retirement savings.
Exactly. Yeah.
Retirement savings.
What is this? I'm taking a mortgage to get this Starbucks. Yeah, so like having a different choice set. Like you shouldn't be resigned at 20 something to be like, yeah, it's never gonna happen. But it feels that way.
Like the only way that it's gonna happen is because like my boyfriend is a theater major. So unless he's
like makes it big
off on Broadway doing like lighting jobs, then like and I suddenly become a best-selling author.
Right.
Like
there are possibilities, but
kind of low odds.
The odds there, right? Exactly. And I was just like, I don't know. So yeah, a big part I think is cracking this money nut for women. And that has to do not only with, well, I think a big part of it has to do with their beliefs and education about money. It's not a financial model, not a financial development model, but I think that has to be part of it. And that probably for me is partnering with people like my friend Tiffany and other people like that who are doing this educational work for women and setting that up for them. But like, I don't know, like self-defense stuff, like, can we walk through these streets safely? Can we create laws that give real consequences to people who violate that? Can we? Yes, we can. Because I'm like, I've never like really been like, oh, let me get on the safe ride thing. I'm like always walking through like, yeah, it's fine. But it's not fine for a lot of people. It's not fine for women to travel abroad alone safely. Like a lot of that stuff. I have another friend who's just created a network, kind of an app thing for women who want to travel alone internationally. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Please, I'm looking for this agency, Garden Care.
We're up on the third floor.
Third floor.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
So again, back to women being human beings who should be able to walk through the world freely. I feel like that's foundational mission. Part of our mission is to like, I'm a human and I should not be constrained to explore this earth that I was born on in any way that I choose to without fear. I think that's a good idea.
Radical.
Radical, like a radical, that's what I am. I'm leading a revolution. It's funny, I was saying, if I'm gonna be a founding father, I'm gonna be Thomas Jefferson because he was the most fly. And for highly, they're all problematic. So I'm like, whatever, I'm picking one, I'm picking him.
He was the least problematic.
Of all, right?
Yeah,
I think so too.
because he didn't own slaves.
Oh, he did.
One of them did not.
Oh, it wasn't him. He definitely owned slaves for sure. He's problematic.
Oh, right, because he's from Virginia.
Yeah, and he had Sally Hemings was his slave wife. That was not his actual wife.
Oh,
He had,
the
like-
Adamses didn't own
Oh,
slaves.
Adams, okay. Well, I'm not consider them too, but he's not as iconic.
Yeah, he's just not aware.
Right. So yeah, I'm super stoked. I'm just like, this is gonna be fun. I might as well. It's gonna be fun. See how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, recording. Good job. Zoom.
Go team.
Do I want to stop it?